It's Hearthstone Grandmasters for Europe, and we're getting into our fourth match of the day. Viper is going to be taking on Fenomeno in this one. I'm going to call him Fino, though, from now on, because I like that name a little bit better. It's just shorter, and he doesn't really care that much. He likes Fino as well. I'm That's Admiral, and I'm joined by Derek Brown, and this is a pretty cool matchup that we have coming up, Derek.
It is indeed the only Warlock that I believe we have across all regions of Grandmasters. The first Warlock we've had full stop here in Grandmasters, with Viper bringing his Zoo Warlock. Not really finding the matchups he was originally looking for as we get to take a look at the deck here, but still, as I said, somewhat serendipitously coming up with a decent couple of matchups against two Cyclone mages.
Yeah, I think this week was super cool for Grandmasters because, you know, as we went into Specialists, there was a lot of talks and speculation that we would be seeing a repeat class again and again and again. That does happen in a lot of situations, but in the second week of Grandmasters, we have now all 9 classes at some point represented amongst the players.
I mean, even just looking at the shift from everyone playing Warrior in week 1, or the vast majority of players, to this week, we're not seeing much Warrior in Europe, at least, at all.
Yeah, it is
far outclassed by Mage.
Partly in thanks to the balance patch,
Absolutely.
Which toned down a lot of the strength of Rogue and the timing pressure it has, which bipartisan makes Warrior weaker. That was the target that Warrior had, was to beat up Rogue. If there's less Rogues, there's less Warrior, which brings us to Cyclone Mage.
It does indeed. This was, I guess this kind of became more powerful, not necessarily because it lost any bad matchups, although I'd say Rogue was a somewhat unfavorable matchup, although that's up for debate. It's mainly just that nothing in the deck was nerfed, and it was already super powerful.
Yeah.
And so at this point, with players realizing last week that the players who did bring it, like Fino and Tice, doing very well indeed, this week, it caught on in popularity massively. With Fino bringing what I would say is pretty much identical to his deck list in week 1, the primary deck of which I think he's pretty happy with. Some of his tech cards, both weeks now, Fino has stated a little bit of unhappiness with the way he has teched his decks, obviously with the big game hunters, as we saw there in his secondary deck to deal with the mage, and last week the Hexlord Malakras he had thrown in there. He didn't really like the way that worked.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of theory where it takes a long time to practice.
Yeah.
The situations you're looking for, and you just can't arrive at the right spot. You know, last week, going into Warrior Stone with Cyclone Mage, you would think that a card that has a lot of value attached to it would be a pretty ideal card.
Yep.
Makes sense. Let's put in Hexlord Malakras. I imagine you can't have practiced enough games necessarily to be able to draw the conclusion, you know what, this isn't really working out how I intended.
Yeah.
Same thing for this week. Big Game Hunter, it blows up giants. If your point is to play for tempo, which Fino has very much done so far, I think Big Game Hunter makes more sense because it lands on a big giant for tempo when your opponent has to just build tension and fight back. Snap Freeze turns out was a way better option to get that job done, and just missed the boat on that one this week.
Yeah, and I would say even if you do like the Big Game Hunter, 1 is probably enough.
Yeah.
To be taking on the mages. 2 feels like a little bit of overkill.
2 Snap Freeze, 1 Big Game Hunter, not 1 Snap Freeze, 2 Big Game Hunter. But we're underway against Warlock, where Big Game Hunter is not an option. And so Fino faced with an early choice of how to fight off this Zoo deck, because Viper's main goal is just simply pressure the entirety of the way.
It is. We've seen a pretty consistent game plan from him against Mage, which is not necessarily to swarm the board as much as humanly possible. It's to find that card right there, Grim Rally, make 3 or 4 minions, buff them up to the point where Mage has to get rid of them in some capacity, but also, because you don't have that many minions in play, the 2 Rabble Bouncers and 2 Sea Giants in Fino's deck will struggle to hit the board.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool nods that Fino has this week as well, is he is clearly one of the players who has respected the ability to get aggressive in a matchup and really put players to the test in that regard.
Viper, I think more so than planning out this turn, is going to be thinking ahead to the next few turns. How does he want to sequence these series of cards? Because again, in these aggressive decks, the game can be decided on turns 1 through 3 a huge amount of the time. Every choice you make makes an unbelievable difference to how the game plays out.
Taking a look at some of the cards on Viper's side with Abusive Sergeant and with Dire Wolf Alpha, it makes so little sense, I think, for Fino to ever consider fighting for board with just a 2 health minion. Pretty forced into hero power here, as he has to look for future turns to clear.
I fully agree. I think he's going for, hoping he draws, obviously, the Sorcerer's Apprentice, or at the very least, just a couple of cheap spells to go up with the Mana Cyclone.
With Sea Giant picked up for Viper, we now have the package in hand.
Yeah, it makes kind of an interesting dynamic where both players have the Sea Giant. Viper does not know that, of course, but he may be wanting to hold back on even playing his own Sea Giant just because he doesn't want to make it so easy for Fino to do so. It's interesting.
The timing of Sea Giant, I think, is one of the harder things to balance against a deck that's trying to do something very similar to what you're doing.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking at is the turn that Fino does anything to try to grab board. I think that's when Viper tries to fight back immediately. You know, I'm looking at Microtech Controller just being overall pretty strong in this matchup.
Yeah.
Because just so many bodies at once. Like, you're overloading Fino's ability to hero power down on your minions. And you threaten Grim Rally that way, and it also is basically 3 mana for a Sea Giant that you don't have to pay for if you're doing those two in tandem. Microtech Controller just makes 3 minions.
Yes, it does. I will agree with that statement. And also for Fino, it's not like he is playing Kalento's deck list, which had the Arcane Missiles, the Dart Frog as well. He has very, very few answers to many small minions. His best response to that is to develop his own cheap minions, like the Rabble Bouncer, which would become very cheap if Viper goes wide on board. Sea Giant Conjurer's Calling to try and hope to hit some Mulch Munchers.
And so for Viper, that's the delicate dance. How do you both maximize your damage and limit the counterplay?
Yeah. Double Goblin Lackey does not really help his situation.
I was thinking about something like Double Goblin Lackey with like a Grim Rally turn. So when does that hit? And I think if you're setting a Microtech Controller, it means next turn.
Very possibly. I think I like waiting a little bit with it because getting the being able to attack with your minions the turn you play Grim Rally is pretty important, I think.
Yeah.
While Viper's primary Zoo deck is very, very light on burst, I think running literally no burst at all outside of Knife Juggler or Lackeys off of the Evil Genius, that chip damage is still very important just to pressure Fino into making plays he would not otherwise like to do.
Yeah, you're looking at all minion-based burst damage aside from Knife Juggler and Lackeys.
But this turn for Fino, while it has been very, very passive indeed up until this point, is absurd.
Well, I got news for you.
So is Viper's.
So is Viper's.
He can. Oh, the Goblin Lackeys are insane, right? Because he can.
Yeah, he can kill the opposing Sea
rush
Giant.
The Sea Giant.
He can kill the opposing Sea Giant and the Khadgar.
Does he have the ability to do all of that with? Yes.
Yes.
He does.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's so absurd. He can even make the Sea Giant survive by going with the Grim Rally to keep it at 1.
I know. It's gross. I mean, you said it yourself. What's the dance there?
This is the dance. All the kids are doing it.
And Spino's face at the reaction to this.
Pretty much. Those eye rolls. That was like REM sleep at that point. That was like rapid eye movement.
Well, what can you do? This is the worst thing that could have happened.
This is literally the worst thing that could ever happen. Is he not killing the Sea Giant?
I think he's killing it with the... No, he's not.
He's saying, if you want to go for Conjurer's Calling here, the only proactive minion that can be developed off of that is Mulch Muncher, which does not even kill off his Sea Giant.
Okay, well then I'm very worried.
We can now see Frost Nova attack phase. No Conjurer's Calling available on the same turn.
So...
But it's...
it's the 5 mana mark. That's what it is. He can't Frost Nova and Conjurer's Calling.
Yes, and that is
I wonder.
Definitely something that Viper will have factored in, because it was a super conscious choice to not trade in the Sea Giant there. I'm honestly not sure if it was correct.
So from Fino's perspective, 16, 17, 18, 19, there's 21 damage on the other side. Ooh. Oh!
Okay, now we're talking for Fino. This is a pretty big punish for Viper's line of play.
Well, potentially. He's got a lot of damage coming.
How much are we looking at now? 11? That's up to 13, 15 damage we could see on this turn, plus potential knives.
Well, if you're seeing 15, you're not seeing knives.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think this might have been a punish.
I mean,
from Viper's perspective, though, the way that I look at it is Fino had to have the goods here. Like, this is very much the aggressive style of play. You force your opponent to have the right cards.
Well, he had to have, like, the worst thing that could have happened there for Viper, well, it happened. It had to be either Conjurer's Calling plus a randomly generated Frostbolt, or Conjurer's Calling plus Ray of Frost, which was in the deck, right, to freeze the Sea Giant here.
But it's
That's
not only
that unlikely.
It's not only that, it's that Fino has to have a follow-up to that as well. Like, he needs to have the Frost Nova as well in this situation. So,
which he does.
but when it's there, Viper gets a chance to respond to this in some way. So right now, the only benefit that Fino's really gotten from this is that he has a big minion in play, which can still be killed off, and Viper still maintains the integrity of the Sea Giant in this spot. Like, it's not gone, it's still a giant threat. And guess who gets to draw 2 cards a turn with their hero power?
That's true. I mean, guess who gets to make 2 6 drops for 3 mana though?
So if Fino goes face and he conjures Culling and he gets Reckless Rocketeer and he goes face for 10 and then he Frost Novas, is that the way to win? Argent Commander?
Are we looking a little bit more closely at trade into the Direwolf and then Frost Nova Conjurer's Calling?
What to do? What to
I'm
do?
looking
Is that
at
a winning play?
I'm looking at a lot of things and none of them feel very good.
Yeah. Viper's still in a good spot here, but
I think trading is responsible. I think it's wise. I don't blame him for it. I'm just trying to figure out how on earth Fino wins the game.
well, I think it's more likely that he gets good cards off the top of his deck than he gets Reckless Rocket. Ah!
It wasn't 2 of them, though.
How do you do this? That's sad.
Runs out on me.
You're a gifted man.
It's not a gift. It's just a rule. At this point, though, I mean, trading off a Sea Giant looks very appealing.
To do. The future is ours.
Trading a 1/1.
Reckless Rocketeer value trade.
Yeah,
Have you ever seen that in your life?
I don't know about that. I don't know if you know Fino, but that's 5 damage that you just passed up.
Well, I mean, he's not winning by going face this game. He's not.
Well, then how is he winning?
By getting back board control. I mean, so sorry, he might win by going face at a later stage in the game, but he needs extra cards to be able to do that. So he needs more information about what the next cards in his hands are.
The board control for me is the Frost Nova. Get minions, hit face, and then Frost Nova and try to win.
Okay.
Now what you've
Against
done
which
instead,
Viper is stopping that by trading.
correct. Now you've given Viper the chance to do the exact same thing to you that you're trying to do to him. Although if you go face, it basically pans out the exact same way.
Yes.
So I would have killed the Sea Giant. But the Sea Giant traded, so maybe, I don't know. It's just
close.
a genius, maybe. Fino shaking his head. I mean, it's bad shape for him.
Yeah, I mean, Viper, even getting all these knife jugglers here, has a very good chance.
boy.
There we go. Killing off the Reckless Rocketeer. A value trade as well for Viper here. Fino can obviously stay alive for a turn or 2
Okay.
with a couple of Frost Novas.
Okay. Oh, no.
We hate to see that.
Oh.
So do you play the Sorcerer's Apprentice this turn, right?
Yes. Sorcerer's Apprentice Frost Nova
Yeah.
into Banana Buffoon, load up the bananas, attack for 5, Cyclone.
Okay.
There's a game here.
This is a game. This is a game. It's not over yet for Fino.
So I want you to think back to that 5 damage and see if it matters this game.
Okay. I mean, I want to think back to when Viper did not trade the Mountain Giants,
Oh!
which still seems somewhat suspect. Magic Carpet is not a bad top deck to find. But tapping here does also mean he drew an extra card, which is 2 damage.
What was he going to draw? I guess Defender of Argus was the ideal draw?
That would have been pretty good. But he gets 2 cards closer to the 2 copies of Corrupted Blood now in his deck.
I wonder.
Evil Genius was a great draw.
And if Viper clears up the board here, he obviously needs to be very afraid of second Frost
He
Nova.
can't clear the board here. He's only got 1 slot.
Right, so he doesn't develop anything this turn in the hope that he gets Defender of Argus next
many
turn,
possibilities.
right?
Oh, if he fills up the board here.
Right, yeah,
I
sorry.
think I just misheard you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Almost out of time.
my bad.
I mean, I probably just misspoke.
No, I definitely misheard you. It's a juggle in Ray of Frost as well.
Welling it up anyway, though,
The
hoping.
Mana Cyclone's huge.
What does he Ray of Frost? I guess you Ray of Frost first and then Frost Nova afterwards because you don't want to clear up board
Well,
space.
you just hit the carpet twice or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's fine.
Oh my goodness.
He's only going to have 1 mana left over after this, which he is definitely thinking about. But, I mean, you have to Frost Nova on this turn.
He's thinking about the Ray of Frosts first. Maybe there's an instance
to
where it
do,
matters to deal the damage.
What to do.
I certainly would be dealing the damage. You don't kill the things immediately. You just set their health lower.
Yeah, this is perfect. You don't want to give him any chance of playing a Defender of Argus. Oh. If he could hit
Big
Pyroblast here.
Big turn.
Oh, that's perfectly good enough.
Viper can't do
That's
anything.
it.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 damage.
No way.
Fino gets out of game number 1. What just happened?
That is unbelievable. He was out of this game.
What is happening?
I am absolutely in shock.
He's reactionless to this as well. He's like, well, yeah,
Obviously, I won.
duh.
Fino.
It's Cyclone Mage. I'm Fino.
There's something in the water today. Cyclone Mage is just doing silly things.
What do I even say to this? I don't even know what's done differently there. Like, for me, I just look at Viper's thing and I go, maybe he's supposed to trade the Sea Giant? That's how he got into that mess.
Right. I mean, I think for me, it's difficult to be results oriented because obviously it would not always work out in the situation where it did. So it's incorrect to call a play strictly wrong because of the way it worked out. But I have to be honest, I don't think that was that ridiculous of a scenario for Viper to envisage there.
God, it looked ridiculous, though.
It did indeed.
Maybe it's not. Maybe
Weird
that's
game.
just good play and a good deck. Going to game 2. Quick break coming up. Fino versus Viper game 2. Right after this.
Well met, friend. Ooh.
Let's get this over with. I win!
Oh, what an amazing game! Oh, well played!
Here's to the winner.
My name is Elias Sibelius and I go under Boston. My username actually comes from my cat. His name is Boston, so I just took that and made it a bit cooler with the triple Z. So yeah, shout out to him. When I got the confirmation that I was in Grandmaster, I was overwhelmed by emotions. Even though I haven't had the first place big tournament win, they actually appreciate that consistency and what I've been working for the last couple of years. I'm very good at focusing on a specific thing and keeping myself ready for the situation. Yeah, and my games and stuff like that. My favorite memory is still my first DreamHack. I remember facing Super JJ I was a total newcomer, so it was very big for me to just be there and just realizing that I could actually beat all these players, and it was very cool. My personal goals for this year is I want to qualify for the playoff. Of course, I want to go to the global finals. That's, I think, everyone's goal, but I want to be one of the best players. I will try my best to get there, for sure.
It's Hearthstone Grandmasters. We got Fino versus Viper going down right now. We're jumping into game number 2, where Viper does not close the game thanks to Fino being to freeze him out of it. And so he swapped over to a tertiary plan, which he very much had in mind, I think, coming into this week, of how to change the matchup. And the answer is add in a lot of burn-style damage.
Absolutely. I think this is one of the biggest weaknesses of Mana Cyclone Mage, is that you run very, very limited healing. Only the Ziliax for Fino. And when you have Life Drinker, Soulfire, and Leroy Jenkins, that often just gets over the edge.
And look at that curve that you're seeing up top there.
A thing of beauty.
Next to the QR code as well, which I'll take my liberty to plug right here, a functioning QR code, which you can copy the deck list with right there. So curve right into that QR code, get on ladder, and see if you can win some games.
Speaking of winning some games, Fino might do that again. Look at this hand.
Oh, but you know, Viper's got a nice little 1-2 here as well, though. Oh, pitching it back.
Yeah, this is very much in keeping with what Viper has been talking about this deck on stream, when he's been streaming, which he does all the way throughout the week on non-Grandmasters days. A very fantastic streamer, super educational, and I encourage you to check him out. He has been saying that in this Zoo deck, you don't settle. The decent 1-drops are not good enough. When you run so many 1-drops in the deck, you want to look for the power cards, primarily Flame Imp as number 1, as the most amount of pressure you can put on the board on turn 1, and Evil Genius. Pretty much just the 2 best cards in the deck.
I don't know why I like Magic Trick and a Magic Trick so much.
Me
It's
neither.
just a waste of mana.
Oh. As Fino is just getting this bad boy on board. Oh my lord.
What?
That's pretty absurd.
No, 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 no. You cannot just pick which 2 cards you want.
I guess it's quite a lot of mana he has to spend now. Like, maybe instead of a second AI, he'd like... I don't know, you can't pick and choose, right? Like, you go even random spells. This is pretty good.
You can't just pick which ones you want, and that's that's like what they're doing. They're just picking which outcomes they want. This is not fair.
When I said he had too many cards to play, or too much mana to spend on all these cards, brilliant. Let's get 1 mana reduction on every spell in my hand.
Where do you go from here, though?
I feel like taking turns where you just ping and value trade is too slow. I like coining something.
Just get rumbling.
Yes, exactly. Because again, with this much stuff in hand, you want to start moving as quickly as you can to your overpowered turns.
And Viper does not have a way to supplement damage on board, which means that one of these minions is sticking. And if one of these minions sticks, that could spell some trouble. And that's not an abusive sergeant. Oh boy. This might get out of hand.
Fino with, what, Sorcerer's Apprentice, Frostbolt, double bananas?
Now, I would argue that Viper is definitely correct in his philosophy. You should not be settling on the minions that are there. But I think given what we've seen from Fino, and I think given the nature of your minions being 1 attack, that Direwolf Alpha is potentially a premium option.
Right.
Direwolf Alpha here, I think, could outright win Viper the game.
It could. Flame Imp on 1, though, is just, when you're going first, is so good.
You're going to have to fight for board, though.
Right, and you have options to do that. There are many cards in your deck that do that as well. I can fully see your point.
It's just, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just, to me, it's interesting. It's a thing that...
I mean, if you look at how it shakes out, he had Crystallizer and Direwolf in hand. If you go Crystallizer and your opponent plays Sorcerer's Apprentice, you have to just trade evenly with the Direwolf Alpha, which is all right. But I think if you're looking for the more premium options, again, like Evil Genius and...
I think you're okay with killing a Sorcerer's Apprentice with a 1-mana card.
Fair enough.
And you get some development.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Especially if you get to back it up with Voidwalker and Witchwind Imp afterwards.
It's a very interesting...
I don't know. Direwolf Alpha is, I think, a very subtly powerful card. And I think in aggressive decks, especially, it's a card that I've often overlooked and has often been such a powerful choice in the right kinds of matchups.
Very fair enough.
I wonder.
Someday I'll be
as I love from Fino, just playing his cards here with double Arcane Intellect in his hand. He wants to first of all protect his apprentice as much as possible, and then second of all get playing those AIs next turn.
That's one of the reasons I will actually want to banana the Sorcerer's Apprentice here. Protect from Direwolf Alpha. Restrict the choice.
Direwolf? Yeah.
Restrict the choice only to Abusive Sergeant and Lucky Knife Juggles.
And Grim Rally, I guess, as well. But
it's Grim Rally in tandem here.
Yeah.
Has to be with something else as well.
Yeah.
Who cares about the mana cycle?
I like this a lot. I think because it's basically the only thing it's really bad against is Soulfire, which has been teched in the deck, because then you've just lost +1/+1 on another minion. And I think, you know, it's not absurd to make the read that Viper has Soulfire. But even then, even though his hand is awkward now, his last few turns have not been that bad. He's just been playing his 1-drops. Oh my lord. Fino just completely refills his hand on the following turn and takes dominance on board.
I don't know how Viper wins from here. I really don't.
His curve just was not good enough.
He didn't have a way to supplement.
Yeah.
Like, needed to have a Knife Juggler that turn. Needed to have Abusive Sergeant. Needed to have Grim Rally. Direwolf.
Even just Soul.
There's so many cards in the deck that get him through that position that's the reason he pitches away the Direwolf Alpha.
He just got all the bad ones here with Leroy and double Life Drink. They're just all terrible.
You have to play the percentages. You have to take risks when it's necessary and hope that the deck will provide for you. That's the nature of an aggressive deck. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I am definitely being results-oriented when I say maybe he should have kept the Direwolf Alpha. In fact, I am quite confident he should not have kept it, and that this game is just bad luck.
Speaking of bad luck, look at Fino's draw. This Mana Cyclone is insane. This is not fair.
Nothing that Mage has done today has been fair. Nothing.
A Scorch for 1 mana next turn? Brilliant. Mirror Image to clog up the board more? Even better.
7 damage to face? Great!
Yes, please. And he is going for it. No trading here from Fino. A face gamer to the core.
Sometimes you just get got.
I think in the first game, there were very legitimate arguments to have been made against Viper's line of play. It got punished. Whether or not it always would have got punished is obviously the interesting point of debate. But if he had traded his Sea Giant early on, that game would have looked completely different than how it did end up shaping out. And now Fino getting the absolute dream on this hand is just nigh on impossible to lose. How much has he got? 9, 11, 12 damage he can push on this turn? With Banana Buffoon, double Banana Ping.
Yep.
Although, does he even have hand space for that?
He does have hand space for that.
Yeah.
But he also...
There is healing in the deck, so he needs to be afraid of going all in.
Just pop a bunch of Giants. Can't deal with that.
Right, yeah. And I think if you can't win on this turn, develop all your stuff, you pretty much win on the next
My question was like, is there any way you lose this turn? Like, is there a weird double Grim Rally, double Soulfire combination that could wipe you out?
If there is, trade, right? Like, clear some stuff off the board.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, you're only getting 1 minion here off the mirror image.
Yeah, you'd never lose here.
He throws up his hand. He knows he just needs to lock out any chance he could possibly lose. There is no way he even pops out his headphones. This is over. Viper got obliterated this series.
Cyclone Mage is a good deck.
It really is, especially with Fino piloting it. Taya, one of the early adopters of Cyclone Mage, bringing it last week to Grandmasters and doing very well with it indeed. I believe now bringing himself up to a 4-0 record here in Grandmasters in the first 2 weeks, joining the likes of Seiko in an undefeated streak.
You know what I've seen in so many games this week is that Banana Buffoon is so good, Sorcerer's Apprentice is so good, and that the way the decks have been losing is when they have Giants.
So maybe the Mana Cyclone stuff, get rid of that. The Giant stuff, get rid of that.
The Cyclone stuff has been good.
Oh, no, sorry. I mean, the Conjurer's Calling stuff. The Conjurer's Calling stuff. That's a load of nonsense.
Well, I'm still calling the Banana Buffoon. That's what I'm getting at. We got Fino for an interview here. Fino, can you hear us?
Hey guys, what's up?
A lot. We're watching you crush Grandmasters right now alongside Psycho. You join him as the only other player at a 4-0 match record. pretty impressive stuff. Talk to me about your Grandmasters experience so far and about the Cyclone Mage deck that you brought this week. It's pretty darn lean.
Well, I'm just gonna say that anyone who thinks that they counter this deck, they just don't. They're wrong. So, I mean, I knew that Viper coming in this week. Viper is the type of guy who goes for the counter, you know? He knows I will play Mage, so he wanted to play something to counter me, right? And like no matter what decks I like, we tried in practice to beat Mage, they just don't beat it. We tried Murloc Shaman, we tried Hunters, we tried. I didn't even think of Zoo because there's no way Zoo beats it. Like, just nothing beats it, and you just gotta bring it. You gotta learn how to play it. You gotta bring it. And you know, I knew Kolenta would bring Mage. I knew Viper would bring something to try to counter me. And well, I just know how to play that deck pretty well, I think.
I just want to know, what is the secret to your success? Why are you 4-0 whereas other players are falling by the wayside with Mage? Is it the way you're playing it, the way you're building it? What's your secret?
I think it's both of these things, but I mean, I've also spent like, I remember I was streaming recently and I checked that for the last 2 weeks, I've only played Mage. I didn't queue a single other game of any other class. I've only played Mage for like 2 weeks straight. So I think I got a really good understanding of the deck and you know what's good in the deck, the lines that you need to go for each game, when you need to go for the giant lines, when you need to go for the like spell lines and all that. I think I have a pretty good understanding of this, and I mean that helps me together with some luck. I mean, come on, like, you know, and yeah, here we are, 4-0.
What have you found to be some of the most important facets in the mirror match? You know, I imagine that's going to be a pretty popular topic next week. You know, I can't predict the future, but you know, what are some of the most important facets you found particularly for the mirror matchup?
Early minions, early pressure. You have mana for a minion, play the minion. Don't ping, don't do other stuff. Just play the minion. I mean, I don't want to give out too much because, like, I think I can get an advantage over other players for playing this better. But yeah, let's just say that.
Well, understandably, to not give away information, you're clearly doing something right. And, you know, you need a little bit of luck to win, but hey, you got to play good and you got to build well also. Fino, congratulations. You joined Psycho as the only other undefeated player in European Grandmasters, and I'm looking forward to seeing you play next week.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Just play your cards.
He's like, I just got to slam stuff. You know, I don't want to give too much away. I spend my mana on creatures, so that way they're in play, so that way they fight and they claw away at stuff. That's a good way to play Hearthstone. Play your stuff so it's in play.
Right. It feels like something we've almost forgotten, where we're so entranced by the idea of Mountain Giant and the Conjurer's Calling that we've forgotten these cards are minions in your deck. You play them to kill your opponent. That's the way Hearthstone works.
It's typically the way it works, unless you've got some sort of weird combo deck or something. Those happen too, but even Mechthud requires some minion. But it's 6th match of the day coming up. That's right, it's Sunday. We get a bonus match. It's Boston taking on Board Control in our 6th and final match of European Hearthstone Grandmasters, and then America's to follow. Stay tuned.